new survey about Industry 4.0. My guest is Maurice Liddell. He is Principal and Senior Client Executive with BDO. Hello, Maurice. How's it going?
It's going great, Robert. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time with me. So, BDO has a 2021 Industry 4.0 survey of manufacturers. So let's start out by defining for me, please, what is Industry 4.0?
Yeah, so this is really the continuation of the ongoing industrial revolution, and this is the technology focus, and really bring in the innovation of technology to bring in the ongoing efficiencies, automation, and for overall efficiencies and safety.
I see. Okay, so it's basically the difference between 3.0 and 4.0 is just a new generation of technology, basically, right? Digitization and the like, that kind of thing, automation,
Absolutely.
stuff like
Absolutely.
that. Okay, that helps to kind of set the tone for our discussion. One of the most interesting and impressive conclusions of your study is that within about 12 months, nearly all manufacturing supply chains, or to be more exact, about 87% of manufacturing supply chains will be digital. That is a pretty impressive statement. I mean, from what base? I mean, how many are there now?
So that you're correct. That is a pretty bold statement. And based off of our respondents and taking a look at who's been spending in the digital space from previous years to this year, we're seeing that number go up rather significantly. And when we're taking a look at doing that, it's for two primary focuses that they wanted to digitize that supply chain. One is for gaining efficiencies, and the other one is more from a customer focus and seeing how do we really deal with more of that Amazon effect that we've seen from manufacturing, where people are wanting to have more instant gratification around their products and deliveries, but also from the overall technical support and support that are provided to customers. So those are the two areas that we're seeing where that the digitization. Now, when we take a look at from supply chain efficiencies, this is where I thought it was a little bit interesting from our respondents in, what were the key metrics that they're wanting to actually achieve. Some of those are just right around from a customer cycle time perspective. How do we get the product and deliver it sooner? Total delivered cost. That one wasn't a surprise because we know they're always going to be focusing on that. Performance to plan, those are the three top ones. But the one that was a little bit of a surprise was around the whole inventory turnover, right? Because we've seen with some of the disruptions that have happened over the last year, which have been fairly significant, organizations are starting to take a look at how do we better protect ourselves against that, and starting to take a look at where there has been traditionally a focus on really this whole lean manufacturing, lean processes, trying to minimize my inventory. We're now starting to see organizations start to take a look at that and readdress it, saying, I'm not going to focus so much as on my inventory turn because that's going to mean I'm going to miss opportunities. So take a look at being able to either near shore or onshore more of that inventory, but overall addressing putting more inventory on their books.
More buffer stock, more safety stock, whatever you want to call it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this kind of reminds me back a couple of years where it's kind of like a simplified, analysis here, to where there was a company that did vendor managed inventory for one of the larger computer manufacturers. A backhoe ripped through their fiber optic network, which held all their communication networks together, but the system automatically rerouted all the traffic through a backup cellular network. So it was a degraded state, but it was able to still continue operating. So you take a look at like COVID or the Suez Canal issue. These were kind of like the proverbial backhoes into supply chain nodes. And where organizations are investing now with digitizing the supply chain is being able to get to that same type of response, where either I've got the systems, the information, the network, to be able to more quickly respond to when that situation arises.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot
And
of,
we
yeah.
call that the digital thread of
Mm.
being able to have that really end-to-end communications with suppliers and your customers, and having visibility into wherever a product is, wherever it may be along the line.
Laudable goals, and goals that had been announced by companies for many, many years. But I guess, do you believe that progress in this direction has been accelerated by the pandemic and other factors of just the last year or so?
We do, and I think the data within the survey helps support that,
Hmm.
because what we do see is kind of a growing divide, if you will, between what we'll say are the born in digital companies and the legacy. And that born in digital just means it's maybe either a newer company or a company that's been around for a while and has invested more in the technology to be able to help support their supply chain. And you take a look at these two different groups, whether they're spending on digitizing the supply chain and where they are kind of in a business cycle. You'll see that from those that are born in digital or reborn, they're thriving from or surviving at about 87%, whereas the ones that are from the legacy are only 72%.
Mm.
So 15% difference right there.
Younger
And that
companies have the advantage simply because they launched new technologies when they were launched. So yeah, that certainly makes a lot of sense. But I want to talk more specifically about what some of these technologies are. I mean, we often talk about the whole concept of digitization. That can be as vague as the term Industry 4.0 sometimes. What aspects of digitization are we seeing? I mean, we could throw out ideas: 3D printing, 5G, Internet of Things, blockchain. I mean, where are the big plays right now in technology that go right along with this 4.0 idea?
I think you hit on a couple of those, but there's several others as well. And it's where I think it's going to hit, particular, I'd say, pain points within their supply chain issues. And to that point too, I want to make one point here, that how organizations are approaching this whole digitization, we're seeing kind of two different camps with that. And that one is more of the whack-a-mole type of approach. I've got a particular pain point, I implement a
Hmm.
technology. And they kind of gauge how they are doing based upon how many technologies, versus ones that are taking a holistic enterprise look and strategy around digital transformation to really be able to see, how do I optimize the information from end to end, kind of talking about that digital thread again. But those technologies you just talked about, some of the others are around, trying to leverage ERP software, for example. That's another one that's going to be able to help you provide more
Well,
visibility.
ERP, enterprise resource planning, nothing particularly new about that. But are you saying a lot of companies had not embraced it at this point or
Or
before
they
now?
have been operating off of significantly older ERP
I
systems, which
see.
may not be able to have the faculties to be able to share information
Hmm.
or be able to integrate within that broader supply chain easily.
Right.
So having a lot more manual integration. Robotics process automation is another one that we've seen a
Mm.
lot of organizations adopting, help to automate a lot of the processes from manual entry or manual intervention, based upon certain business events.
Yeah. Well, it sure sounds like there's a huge move in that direction, that companies are maybe learning their lesson from the past and adapting. It just seems like the big overarching idea here is sort of a risk management idea, the idea that we need these new technologies to avoid disruptions of the future. Or is that where the mentality is? Is that how they're thinking?
I think it kind of goes back to that proverbial backhoe and kind of
Yeah.
analysis around that,
Hmm.
and what are all the risks around the supply chain, and being able to address those key points. So yes, I do see that as one, but it's also around the, again, trying to gain efficiencies piece of it. And you mentioned for a moment, blockchain, being able to get the visibility of product from end to end. That's one technology we see companies starting to either have invested or looking to invest. But another part is not just the technology piece of it, but maybe um, gaining or creating consortiums to be able to share information as well as to leverage each other's types of capabilities. So there's I think a fairly well-known one from German manufacturers that has been initiated. And those are some of the things that they try to, are objectives out of that group.
Interesting. Progress on all fronts then. Seems like a pretty good conclusions from your study. And I'm sure you'll be doing another one. And when you do, I'll definitely want to touch base with you and see what progress has been made since the last one. But in the meantime, Maurice Liddell of BDO, thank you very much for taking time with me to explain these trends. I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Robert. Appreciate your time as well.